Melanie Schickler, and we have some awesome stories on today's show with the MLB, NHL, NFL, and NBA all making the cut. That's 4 of our major sports, so let's get right into it with the MLB coming in at pick number 6. Top prospect Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made his MLB debut with the Toronto Blue Jays Friday night. He went 1 for 4 with a double down the first base line in the bottom of the ninth. Brandon Drury then stepped up and crushed a walk-off home run with Vladimir Guerrero's pinch runner on third base.
The 2-2. And that's a fair ball down the right field line. Guerrero is on his way to second base with his first major league hit.
The crowd went absolutely nuts when he stepped up to the plate for the first time, including his father, who was a Hall of Fame outfielder. Guerrero Jr. even sported his father's Expo jersey while walking into the Blue Jays ballpark. MLB insiders even think that he's one of the best prospects in recent history. By the way, he's the youngest player ever to start in the cleanup position at just 20 years and 42 days old. In a post-game press conference, pitcher Marcus Stroman even compared him to Zion Williamson. He said, quote, "It's like having Zion Williamson on your team." That's a pretty great comparison considering he's only played 2 games in the big leagues. On to pick number 5. We go to the fact that the Hurricanes knocked off Ovi and his squad after they won the Stanley Cup last season. I wasn't surprised that the Hurricanes tied it up in Game 6 at their place, considering they had won the previous 2 games. But to go into Washington for Game 7 in front of that electric home crowd where the Capitals won the Stanley Cup last year, that's really hard to do. Hats off to Rob Brind'Amour for coaching a relatively young team against a very experienced Capitals roster. Young guns Sebastian Aho and Teuvo Teravainen each stepped up and tallied a goal in this big Game 7. A little unexpected is 25-year-old Brock McGinn coming up absolutely huge for the Canes before the game ended. The Capitals had an amazing chance to win the game late in the third period, but just as the puck trickled past Mrazek on the goal line, Brock McGinn saved his team's season. Look at this play. That's sacrificing your body. And then in double overtime, he has the winning goal off of a feed from captain Justin Williams from the hash of the right faceoff circle. I'm curious to see how far the Hurricanes can take their storm surge against the New York Islanders in round 2 of the playoffs. That series is currently locked at 1 game apiece. For pick 4 in our show, we stay right here in the NHL and we look at the insane Game 7 between the Sharks and the Knights earlier in the week. I've never seen such a crazy hockey game before. Many analysts have also said the same about this game. After being down 3-1 in the series and 3-0 in the third period of Game 7, the Sharks clawed their way back. That's amazing veteran work and perseverance. The big story in this game isn't the outcome, though. It's the 5-minute major that left Cody Eakin out of the game and brought the Sharks right back into the game. After a face-off in the Knights zone, Cody Eakin stick checks Joe Pavelski. He then smacks into Paul Stastny very hard, leaving the ice covered with blood. What the refs saw is different from what actually happened. They called a 5-minute major for what they thought was a check to the head, but if we look closely, it was only a check to the chest despite the aftermath. This resulted in the Sharks scoring 4 straight goals and taking the lead late in the third period. Logan Couture had 2 of those goals along with Tomas Hertl and Kevin Labanc, who actually had an assist on all of the other goals as well. Jonathan Marchessault of the Golden Knights then tied it up, sending the game to overtime. The Sharks completed the comeback as Barclay Goodrow drove the net on a breakaway and put a forehand past Marc-Andre Fleury. Golden Knights forward Jonathan Marchessault was not happy about this call and he let reporters know after the game. He said it was an embarrassment to the league and it was an unjust call. The refs did make a call to the Golden Knights front office and apologized for their mistake. Apology or not, the Knights will not forget this for a very long time. Now that I've mentioned both NHL stories for this week, it's worth noting that this is the first time since the NHL season in 1967 that every single division leader has lost in the first round. That's every single 1 seed getting knocked out. Now let me ask you this question. Has any lower-seeded team won in the first round of the NBA playoffs? No. Every single higher-seeded team has won all 8 series. It's just not as fun to watch. There's never any crazy stories. The only crazy story this far, it's got to be the 31-point comeback by the Clippers. That was 1 game. They didn't win the series, and you're allowed to have slip-ups in 1 game. But Guess what? The Warriors are playing the Rockets. They're the 1 seed. They never go out. Blah, blah, blah. Everyone expected the Lightning to win the Stanley Cup. 50% of all bracket makers had them winning the Stanley Cup. But guess what? That's out the window. That would never happen in the NBA considering all the higher seeded teams made it to the next round, right? Well, back to the MLB for pick number 3. Brewers outfielder Christian Yelich hit his league-leading 14th home run last night.
Here's Christian Yelich.
And a fly ball hit back into deep right field. And Yelich goes yard on the road. Check that box in 2019. 14th of the year for Yelich. And the Brewers with a couple of bombs in the 4th.
It's not the league-leading stat that we're concerned about here. It's the fact that he tied Albert Pujols and Alex Rodriguez for the record for the most home runs hit before May 1st. Crazy enough, last night was his first home run hit away from Miller Park. All other 13 home runs were hit at home on home turf with that advantage. Maybe that explains it. But anyway, he was named MVP of last season and he only had 11 home runs before mid-season. He has 14 in under a month. That's crazy. He's on pace to shatter the home run record in a single season, which is currently held by Barry Bonds. Although unlikely, I can't wait to see what he does the rest of the season. For pick number 2, we go to all of those picks in the NFL draft. Like we expected, Kyler Murray went first overall to the Arizona Cardinals and later on told reporters he had no worries about being the starting quarterback. So just like that, the Birds sent their first-round draft pick of last year, Josh Rosen, to the Miami Dolphins. Nick Bosa of Ohio State and Quinnen Williams of Alabama were picked up 2nd and 3rd for the 49ers and the Jets. Those two teams need to really rebuild their defense, and that's a great first way to start. As for some surprises in the draft, we have the Giants picking up Daniel Jones 6th overall, and Dwayne Haskins not going until the 15th pick to the Redskins. He was not happy, he took it as an insult, and he even told an ESPN reporter following the draft.
To be honest, I'm more motivated now than ever. There's a bigger chip on my shoulder. The league done messed up.
Despite where these guys were picked up in the draft, they all have something to prove, and I'm sure all you guys are looking forward to their performance in the NFL come September. I know I just badmouthed the NBA, but for those higher seeded teams, there are fantastic moments. So for our top pick in today's show, it's gotta be Damian Lillard. 50 points and a 37-foot buzzer beater to win not only the game, but the series as well. Here's how it sounded live.
Lillard, a chance to send the Thunder home. Lillard, long-range 3, and it's good! At the buzzer! Damian Lillard! Are you kidding me?
Damian Lillard shot 67% from 30 feet and beyond. All other NBA players were a combined 16% from that range. That's 4 times the accuracy for one player versus all the other players in the league in the first round. This game was crazy close the entire first half, and the Blazers were up by 1 point, 61-60 at halftime. Lillard had 34 points alone in the first half, which was more than Westbrook and George had combined. The Blazers were down 105-90 in the middle of the fourth quarter, but fought back with, of course, Lillard's help. He only had 5 points before his game-winning three-pointer, but he had 4 assists in the final 7 minutes of the game, which is what he needed to do when the opposing team was expecting him to shoot or drive to the basket. He had a franchise and personal high of 10 three-pointers in that game, which helped him reach a milestone as he joins Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan as the only players with 50 or more points in a series-clinching game. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Unfortunately, with finals week approaching and a wedding I have next weekend, I have to skip next week's show and pick up with episode 7 on May 12th. We'll see you in 2 weeks on Schick Pick 6.